Hello everyone and welcome to this special video. This video is episode 1 of our YouTube series entitled Where Are You Now? I will be interviewing various professionals and university students and asking them questions about their journey throughout their university and through their job about what they do and how they got there. And I'll be asking various questions that my students would also like to have answered. Questions like, how did you get your job? What was your experience at certain universities, and so on. This series is it's a very meaningful one to me because it really helps me to catch up with a bunch of students I've taught in the past, and I hope that this brings you a lot of good insight into your future career path and university path. For this episode 1, we'll be interviewing Mazin, one of my previous students who went to UNC and who is now a software engineer in California. So let's check it out. To start off, how's life going aside from work? Like, what's consuming your life right now? Like, what do you spend your free time on?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Many things. Like first and foremost, I'm trying to get back into some sports. I've been playing a lot of sports in college and whatnot, recreationally, obviously, not
Right.
professionally or anything like that.
No,
So
you're probably a professional athlete by now, you know?
I wish, I wish. But yeah, I'm just trying to do a bit more of that. I recently joined a soccer league and I'm doing that, and that's
Nice.
been fun. Also trying to do new things. I've been trying to go into some more like dance classes, try different types of genres. Like a friend got me into like Latin music.
That's
So I'm
cool.
doing that. Aside from that, I'm in San Jose, so there's a lot of things to do here, a lot of nature spots, and I'd like to try to explore some of these places as well as restaurants. So
Mhm.
slowly trying to do these things. Yeah.
Right. Like I knew that you're always into sports and athletic. Like I coached you for ultimate frisbee. I know that you play soccer. I remember that. But what made you go into dance? Because that's something that's like totally left field. I would have never expected you to go into dance, but it's awesome. Like, it's such an important skill to have, especially at your age, because you're gonna start to go into like weddings soon and all that. That's a good skill. That's a really good skill to have.
I actually just went to a wedding in Boston, so it came a
Yeah.
little bit handy. But no, I think it's. I mean, part of it is I'm African, so
Okay.
maybe it's inherently the drive and to wanting to learn that. But I've been
Hmm.
to a few socials here and there, and
Right.
I went to a lot of like Afrobeat parties and various things. So it's just something that I kind of wanted to do, but obviously not gonna put in as much of the time as some of these people do that are very very good, but just dabble in it here and there.
Cool, cool, cool. And I really appreciate that you are being active too, because I think the stereotype with so many software developers is that they're on their computers 24/7 and then they go home to their computers and just play video games all day. Like that's how I wrecked my hands basically, right? But that's good to hear. So, just for the video, want to introduce yourself and talk about what did you study in university, where did you go, and all that.
Sure, yeah. So a little about me. So it was Mazin. I'm from Toronto. Um, Mr. Park was my teacher at one point, and actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. In high school, I always wanted to pursue like a STEM degree.
Right.
I wasn't sure as to what field I'd want to do. Engineering was always like a focal point, or a focus point that I was interested in. I also had the doctor route, as a lot of kids do, but I think what really driven me to computer science was Mr. Park, and I really do mean that. Like, you're one of the biggest reasons why I'm here, where I am
Mm.
today, and why I continued. Taking computer science classes. So I just want
Mhm.
to give context on
Yeah.
this. Mr. Park's a great guy, great teacher. He didn't pay me to say any of this, but yeah. So that's what got me into computer science.
Mm.
And then I went to UNC, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And
Nice.
the reason being, I guess I've always wanted to go to an American school just
Hmm.
because, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I just thought that there might be more opportunities
Yeah.
tech wise.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I went to UNC and studied computer science, minor in data science, and
That's
all that
just
really entailed
nice.
taking an extra class. So sometimes people throw these extra, majors and minors, but
Yeah.
doesn't mean much. Don't worry. But um, yeah, and then kind of went from there, and yeah, happy to elaborate more. But that's it holistically. Yeah.
Hmm. And personally, like, as an anecdote, like, I'm so glad you stayed in computer science because I remember this very, I would say, a challenging moment for you in your grade 12 year, right? I think you had one bad test
Yeah,
Right? Let's be real. Like it wasn't probably that bad, right?
yeah,
But there was this you were having this inner crisis, and I remember this telling you like don't like drop this course, don't think this is impossible for you, right? I think we had that talk, and I'm so glad because like if I look at your LinkedIn now and your history of how you started in grade 12 all the way into now you're a software engineer, right? Because there is another alternate version of you who would have dropped computer science then, and who knows what would have happened, right? So like it makes me really happy that you stayed, pulled through. You're probably making double the amount of money I'm making, right? But I'm really happy for you. You were at Vaughan Secondary School, which has a new name now. It's called Hodon Nalaya, right? And then you were a computer science major with data science minor at UNC, right?
yes, yes. And
Um,
UNC is also like a liberal arts school, so I
cool,
took a lot of like humanities and various other classes as well.
nice.
But yeah, that was my primary major. Yeah.
So for your electives, you decided to take a lot of liberal arts. Like, what did that help you become a more rounded person?
Honestly, I, I think so. Like, I can't pinpoint what exactly it is, but I feel like when you take these, random classes
Mm-hmm.
like histories, humanities, philosophy, I feel like that in some ways, I felt like it does develop me as a person, like
Right.
intellectually, and you
Mm-hmm.
know, developed a lot of my like curiosity.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
a lot of times, like I'll just search up random things, sometimes related to computer science, sometimes
Yeah.
unrelated, or I'll have these like random conversation with friends and families about things happening around the world or philosophies
Mm-hmm.
or random things. So I think it's definitely something that I would recommend anyone pursue.
Yeah.
But the argument against that is that I am taking all these classes that someone that went to another school probably is taking more computer science classes than me, right? So
Right.
it's a balance. But at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
you do learn from work experience, right? So I think
Yeah.
it works out at the end.
Mhm. Yeah. So then that will lead to my next question then. Would you believe that, I mean, would you agree that university prepares you for jobs in the future, or was it more your internships and actually doing your side projects that really got you to where your computer science skill is at today?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like there's like fundamental building blocks, and I mean this is just my opinion that I think everyone needs. Them being like knowing some sort of programming language, object oriented programming,
Yeah.
writing unit tests, what else? Data structures, maybe a bit of algorithms. So these are things that I would say are pretty pivotal in like
Mm-hmm.
industry, and maybe it might relate to role, but I think like your role, but I think in generally like these are good things to have. But outside of that, it's just work experience. I feel it's just about
Mm-hmm.
like being in the field, learning from someone else, or you're not necessarily working with someone else and doing like an internship or side project. I think that's kind of where I've had the most of my learnings.
Nice. So, like I don't know if you sign NDAs or anything, but are you allowed to talk about your internships and past work experiences?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am. I
Cool.
am. My first, so I've had three internships and then I had a full time role. I'm trying to remember because it's been a while since I've talked about this. So what? Yeah, maybe I'll backtrack. I'll talk about my
Sure.
my full time role first.
Yeah.
Right now I work at Nutanix. Nutanix is based in San Jose. Um, we're a hyper converged infrastructure company. So like
Mhm.
basically what we do is we offer services on prem, which is like on customers' premises or environments, as well as cloud. So we're in
Nice.
that hybrid environment. And kind of our unique value proposition is that a lot of these bigger um, companies uh, don't want to use the cloud because it's expensive, and they also
Hmm.
have other regulatory reasons that prevents them from using the cloud.
Yeah.
I think we work with Nutanix. It's kind of the high level summary. So when I first joined, the team that I'm in is called the Nutanix Database Service Team,
Hmm.
and basically, it's like a DBaaS offering that allows customers to manage all their databases, so Postgres, MySQL, MongoDB, various other databases in one platform. And
Right.
the value proposition is that you have one platform, you can just manage these databases.
Hmm.
And you have a lot of like functionalities, like you can back them up, you can restore directly to your location. We offer like customer support stuff, all that.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of high level what we do. And so when I first joined, I worked on a project which is open source. It's called the NDB Kubernetes Operator,
Hmm.
and basically what it is like the operator is like the design pattern that all Kubernetes resources follow.
Yeah.
So it's just like an extension of that for NDB, which allows people to like create and provision and manage databases on Kubernetes environments, so that like developers can easily just kind of use this Kubernetes environment to get things up and going, and it's nice and easy. Yeah, so I worked on that.
Cool.
I worked on that for a bit, and then kind of transitioned over toward uh, we're migrating some of the APIs that we're using to use whatchamacallits, to use some other cluster management tools,
Hmm.
since stuff we're using is dated. So some of that, as well as some migration of some backup solutions to object stores. So that's kind of what I've been working on so far.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Um, so with your current role right now, right? Uh, where would you have learned all the skills from? Was it more university focus, where you took courses related to databases or working with Kubernetes, or is it more self study, or is it more like your past internships?
Definitely all self study.
Okay.
Particularly like I'm a big fan of Udemy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's various educational mediums such as
Okay.
Coursera, EDX, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what's unique about Udemy is that it's not really taught from an institution. It's
Right.
taught from like random people. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
not random. They're they got badges.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So I feel like it's the learnings there are a bit more hands on.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say a lot of like the skill sets I learned right now, Kubernetes, distributed systems, all these things, I probably learned them from Udemy.
Cool.
I also think that AWS has a very good some very good training videos. If you just
Mm-hmm.
kind of watch those, you kind of get some insight and background.
Yeah.
But also like I learned a bit of like iOS development,
Mm-hmm.
making like Express servers and all that from Udemy. So I think most of
Yeah.
my learning has come from watching those videos on my free time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's crazy that we currently live in a world right now, like going to universities and colleges is expensive, right?
Yeah.
Getting a degree is expensive, but there are so many rhetorics that all these engineers, if you ask them, they're basically self-taught. They're
Mhm.
watching videos or taking courses or just creating a bunch of projects, right? So, for the students that are in high school right now, would you still recommend that path of going to a university, getting a degree, or would it? Can we create a paradigm shift where like you're 18, just sacrifice 2 years at home and just study all this, create wonderful projects, and hopefully you get hired? Like, what are your thought process on that?
Yeah, again, my opinion, right? This is a disclaimer, so make sure
Yeah,
everyone do
yeah,
your own research and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But like my understanding of it, like I've noticed from speaking to other people, I've noticed that in the past, a degree wasn't required,
Mm-hmm.
and like a lot of people, like when I was at Microsoft, like one of the big managers, I think he graduated like while I was interning. I don't even think he had a bachelor's,
Okay.
something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that the bar of entry was a bit lower in degree wise, not skill wise,
Yeah.
obviously degree wise. But now I'm seeing, since like it seems like there's so much competition. I feel like all these places, like this, it seems like they do require you to have a bachelor's or some sort of degree. This
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm seeing, but like I think the learnings of like self study are like triumph that of a degree, and also I feel like there's no risk to, like, let's say, I don't know, after you graduate, you spend a year like doing a side project or just learning random stuff. Like it's a year, like when you're like 19 or 18. There's
Mm-hmm.
no risk to that at the grand scheme of things. So that's something you want to do and see if it turns out. If you want to create your own startup or something like that, I think just go for it.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Uh, cool. Along that lines, you're talking about like how it's very competitive right now in this field, right? Because like I'm so happy you're working right now because I would say within the last 5 7 years, this is probably the worst time to be a developer. This is the most competitive it has been, and with big companies, especially the FANG companies, like doing bunch of layoffs, and I would say the sentiment around developers and engineers is it's pretty sad right now, right? Because I recently talked to a Waterloo grad, and he was competing against with like a senior engineer from Meta for a job. Like this kid just graduated, and he got to the final round. It was against him versus someone with 12-year experience at Facebook, and it was like an engineer, right? So like what are your opinions? What are you seeing? Because like for me, this is all based on like recent conversations or just a whole bunch of like red flag Reddit posts that I read every day, right? So what are your situation or thoughts on all this at the moment?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I think the year before I graduated, like a lot of people were getting offers left and right. I think that was before COVID. And then when I graduated around my time, and my time was still, I would say, relatively better than the past few years. But yeah, it just the market started to become very hard. I mean, even anecdotally, like I
Mm-hmm.
applied to many places. I have friends that also have applied to many places, and it just takes a while. And unfortunately, we're in a situation where people that are more experienced are going to take that pay deduction and go for a
Mm-hmm.
lower grade, I don't know, job, and then they're gonna take yours. So it's just unfortunate. You just gotta try to like hang in there, and I think the best way of like winning the game is to see if you have any connections or anyone that can like refer you to
Yeah.
positions. Because cold applying is just it's
Mm-hmm.
hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, like you as a person are like the opposite of the stereotypes of a for me a computer science student, right? Like for me, like you were so involved in extracurriculars at school, right? You had that social skills, the I would say the EQ, right? And you're like the perfect combination. You have the EQ where you're sociable, you can talk to people, and you're able to create connections. At the same time, now you have the technical skills to be an engineer, right? So and I don't know, like, would you emphasize that uh, you need a good balance? Would it be a 50-50, or would you say that a 80-20? Like, what do you think about like future graduates? What should they work on? It can't just be code, right?
Yeah, 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 for sure. I
Mhm.
appreciate the compliment.
Yeah, yeah. No, dude, like you're an amazing student. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Hmm.
But yeah, yeah. So what I definitely noticed is like the very higher ups people
Hmm.
tend to have both, unless they just suck, and it's like how they get hired. But they tend to have both.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I'm also noticing is like the junior people, that stereotype of what it means to be a science major is definitely changing. So I would
Hmm.
encourage you to have both those skills. I think at the end of the day, yeah, like when you do an interview,
Hmm.
part of it's going to be the leak code and whatnot, the
Yeah.
algorithms. You got to have that raw knowledge.
Hmm.
But I think what differentiates you is that social aspect and the
Hmm.
ability to, I guess, engage with your interviewer and relate. I think that's very important in getting your foot into the door. Also, like those, I think those connections are very very important
Yeah.
because they last. Like
Hmm.
I make many connections from some of my friends that are in different companies
Yeah.
and previous places I worked at. So like these things last in the future when you do want to take someone up on it.
Cool. Cool. Speaking of your interviews,
Yeah.
how was the leak code style interview process? Because my understanding, because I've never done a technical interview, I've only heard stories. I've heard that is multiple rounds. It's basically harder than your job sometimes in terms of like what you have to code or the complexity of it. So, what was that process like?
Yeah, it definitely varies for company. I will say a lot of like the what's the word? The trading companies have some crazy questions. Like I
Mm-hmm.
interviewed Hudson River Trading. It was just like a screening. Their
Mm-hmm.
legal questions are crazy hard.
Yeah.
And Google's as well was pretty tough. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it really varies. I think like the process generally is like it's like a phone screen with a recruiter. Then you have
Mm-hmm.
the lead code, and then you have like two interviews or something, and then maybe an interview again like system design.
Yeah.
So the best way to prepare about it is there's some classes that people teach where you can watch them. I've never really used them. I just kind of go through lead code, and what someone else told me, which I think is valuable, is like if you're practicing a particular skill set, first you practice all things in that skill set. Like let's say you're playing like soccer,
Mm-hmm.
or like I don't know, basketball is easy terminology. If you want to practice something, you'll practice the same thing and do it many times. So how that relates in this context is that like if you're practicing interview questions, don't
Mm-hmm.
just practice interview questions. Practice interview questions of a particular type. So whether they're
Yeah.
like tree traversal questions or
Mm-hmm.
like dynamic programming questions,
Right.
practice those and kind of move on. And eventually you learn to like when you do interview, you learn to like know like relate which questions are what. And all this stuff like takes time and a lot of it is luck too. Sometimes you might see the question beforehand. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm by no means an expert of it. I'm still learning how to do it myself. It just
Right.
takes time. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. So, um, throughout your like computer science journey so far, whether it be working, studying, or interning, or even interviewing, what would be the most challenging thing, right? Like something that no one has ever prepared you for, warned you about. What was the most challenging thing for you?
Yeah, I think
Nothing. It was all
no,
easy,
no,
eh?
no. Of course not. Of course not. But I'm trying to see like what is a good answer to this. Uh, you know, I think like you learn that like school um, doesn't prepare you
Mm,
for like a lot of the things that you do
yeah.
on a daily basis. So like for me, like um, in my particular situation, I feel that I lack like a networking operating system,
Hmm.
knowing Linux fundamentals, like all that, like, and by that I mean not like how to navigate a file system, other things, and
Yeah.
that affects my raw knowledge,
Hmm.
which in turn affects my ability to mitigate and analyze on calls. So that's what I'm going through on calls. So
Right. Yeah.
I'm recently been part of a ship program where I answer on calls and mitigate customer issues.
Hmm.
So that's been very challenging for me. And
Yeah.
the reason that's been challenging for me is because number one, I guess our product is not it's monolithic, so you have to really know the whole like tech stack to
Yeah.
understand what's going on in the various components.
Hmm.
And also because I'm junior, there's just a lot of things like I don't really know yet. So it's like
Yeah.
when I'm hopping on a customer call, someone's like, "Hey, hop on this call." I'm like, "Dude, I need 30 minutes to read on. I don't even know what this issue is."
Hmm.
So on calls have definitely been very
Yeah.
challenging for me,
Yeah.
and I think the best way I've been learning about doing it is just an experience, and then like watching these random YouTube videos
Right.
that I
Hmm.
mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And like for me, like that would give me such a headache because when you talked about what your company does, right? It offers like SQL based databases and NoSQL databases. Like usually when a backend engineer learns like a database, they either fall into one of the categories, not know both like perfectly to do on calls and fix problems on demand, right? That's insane. So
exactly.
that is a big ask for your engineers, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Man.
and they just learn like the little queries, not like the like
Hmm.
how stuff happens. So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's good learning stuff. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Just for context of students that might be watching this, can you explain what more of an on-call is?
Oh yeah, sure. So basically, an on call is it's when an engineer or someone is on standby, and it basically has to mitigate a customer issue. So like customers might be using our product or service, then something happens, they generate a ticket, which results in an on call.
Hmm.
In my company, it's probably similar in other places, but it gets triaged to SREs, which are basically like specialists that know how to mitigate, like have domain knowledge in various products, my product as well as other products, and know how to like tend to mitigate the issues. And sometimes if they don't um, aren't able to figure it out, the screening goes through the engineers, and then the engineers um, try to mitigate it. That's first and foremost, and then after they mitigate it, then they write something called an RCA, which is a root cause analysis.
Hmm.
That's what it works. And it varies in company. For my company, or at least for my team, I only have an 8 hour shift on call, so
Mm.
do my own work, and then if
Yeah.
something pops up, because it's split across time zones. Well, other people,
Hmm.
like I know, I think AWS has a 24/7 on call, so you're
Yeah.
gonna get that beeper phone call. You better pick up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I remember, like my brother works at Salesforce as an engineer, and
Yeah.
like his on calls are brutal, and
Oh,
it's sometimes like during like the early mornings from like 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. sometimes because of the clients that they have. So it's just brutal. Sometimes you have to just stay awake and like put his phone on sound, right? Anything can happen. Yeah.
yeah, I have it good for sure.
Yeah, like 8 hours is great. I'm happy for you. So at this school, our coding club execs are like insane. They are very driven. They're amazing, and they're hosting their second hackathon ever. Right. So I was wondering, do you have any hackathon experiences, whatnot?
I do, but
Hmm.
I think one of the COVID years, I created some sort of it was like some sort of COVID um, a COVID dashboard in which you could see like who has COVID in your area, and then you can like
Right.
report cases and whatnot. So that was one of my experiences.
Hmm.
I think it was probably, and then I did another hackathon, and it was like some sort of, it was like a Pong game or something a while back. But yeah,
Hmm.
COVID affected my junior year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
yeah, and
yeah,
just thinking back, like let's even go back to that. How did COVID affect your university life? Because you were in the middle of it, right?
Yeah, so it hit. So I had spring break, and then so I think spring break is an American social construct, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I had spring break. So March, I traveled back to Canada, and then I got an email. It's like COVID happened. You can't come back. So all my stuff was in the dorm, and then I
Mm-hmm.
stayed. And the second year, I'm like, oh, I want to go back. My parents are like, nah, COVID's still gonna happen. Just stay. Let's
Mm-hmm.
wait to see what happens.
Yeah.
So I still had a contract for my apartment, which is on campus for
Mhm.
second year.
Right.
But then like COVID happened. I think they sent most people home, or some people stayed, but most people were home. All my stuff just stayed in that dorm,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the middle of the year they moved it to storage. So my second year I did it all in Canada, and then third year I went back to campus.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Yeah, and third year,
Yeah.
even first semester,
Mm-hmm.
things were weird with COVID. But I
Yeah.
know Canadian schools had it worse. I think they were on lockdown for a lot longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. And so, how do you feel about that? Because I know some people I've heard they're pretty salty about missing, like they didn't get the post-secondary experience, like a movie like post-secondary experience, because kind of COVID went through that. But do you think that you persevered and you're okay with your experience, or
Yeah, I mean, looking back at it, I lost a year and a half. So,
yeah?
I think that that definitely sucks. But I will say some people got hit harder. Like the people that were a year under me,
Mm-hmm.
they lost their high school
Yeah.
graduation and goodbyes, and then their freshman year. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot worse. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm so happy to be out of school right now. It definitely sucks, but learning online also it depends on who you are, but it could be advantageous or disadvantageous.
Mm-hmm.
Advantageous in that like since like things are online, like you have more time to do things, so like you can do other things and then do school. Like I think my second year of COVID, because it was COVID, I was able to focus more academically, so I got
Right.
pretty good grades just from having that time and having mom being able to cook and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I would prefer the in-person experience if I could go
Mm-hmm.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. So then, like, on this topic of us like looking back in things, okay, if you can talk to your high school self, right? Like, what would you tell him? What would be the like advice that you would like to give to your high school self?
Yeah, I think one like everyone's path is not linear, and that's what I've learned from talking to other people. Is that if you really want to do something or get somewhere, you can be there. It just might not be a straight line. It might go like this and like that, but don't worry about all that.
Mhm.
And also don't compare yourself to others. Thief is the no comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah. Oh, look at you!
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Don't compare yourself to others. Just kind of do your thing and stay in your lane. I feel like I suffered a lot
Mm.
from that probably in my 11th and 12th grade year.
Mm.
What's the word when you compare people? Um, Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of imposter syndrome, even a little bit like in my college years. So I think that's normal. People go through it, but don't
Mm.
worry about all that.
Mm.
And then yeah, try to meet other people, surround yourself with other people that are interested in what it is that you do, and then you can learn from each other and build that community together. And don't be afraid to just learn random things, and more importantly, reach out to people. Like what I do every now and then is I'll go on LinkedIn and I'll look at
Mhm.
some random person's CV and be like, okay, like this person is doing this. Like, how did he get there? What are some
Mhm.
of the skills that he needed to do?
Yeah.
And then I think when I was even younger, like a senior or junior, or whatever, I would like sometimes reach out to these people. People like talking to younger people, whether in high school or college. As you
Yeah.
get older, like I'm still a new grad, so
Mhm.
I'm like a year and a half away, so a
Mhm.
little bit, but like when you get older, like
Mhm.
it's like no one wants to talk to you. So if people like talking, so just
Yeah.
ask them about their experience and learn from them.
And like, to be fair, you're living out some of my students' dream. You're out, West Coast. You're working for a tech company, right? You graduated with a CS degree. Like that is literally some of the dreams that some of these kids have since grade 9, and they put all their eggs in basket into studying computer science, learning coding, and all that. So, I think you did really well. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a good teacher. Good teacher.
So on the flip side, then, let's say 5 years from now, you're 23,
Yeah.
right? So you'll be 28, right? You'll be a seasoned veteran by then, winning all your amateur soccer leagues by then, and be an amazing dancer. But where would you like to see yourself in 5 years?
Hmm. Yeah, I think even when I'm Well, I mean, work wise, still would definitely like to kind of keep pursuing that technical acumen. I
Mm-hmm.
want to get better than what it is I do, and then hopefully by then narrow down like what um, field really I want to understand. So I think that's very important for me. Maybe years after that, I would be interested in seeing like pursuing a managerial route, but I hear mixed things about that. Some people like it, some people don't. So I don't know if I will. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have to see.
Yeah.
So I think yeah, work wise, that, and then like socially and like recreation. I want to make sure I'm at a point in my life because like 20 and all that. Like when you're there, you're older, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to number one learn to really like optimize the time you're spending at work and try to knock things out quickly
Yeah.
so that you can free up your time later. And that's something that I'm still struggling with right now
Mm-hmm.
because I want to make sure I live that balanced lifestyle because I think America,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of places in America, maybe software engineering has this whole like die hard, go hard like
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
mentality, and like you don't want to be one of those people that suffers from like burnout and stuff like that. So having that
Mm-hmm.
balanced lifestyle is very important.
Cool. Cool. Um, have you ever thought of like becoming a YouTuber? Because there is such a like stereotype of like, oh, like I worked at so and so for X years and now I'm a tech YouTuber. Have you ever thought about that?
Yes, Mr. Park, I have a channel, but I have no subscribers.
Oh no, I'll subscribe to you. I'll get all
Yeah,
my
so
kids to
so
subscribe.
yes, let's work together. But
Yeah.
yeah, I have a channel. I think the last video I did was like a year and a half ago. So
Cool.
as you can see, like I came here like shit, I have no time to see my language. But yeah, so basically in my channel, it's called Mazin Mazin S. What I do is I kind of do something similar to here. I just talk to some of my friends that
Hmm.
went through this experience and ask them a bit about their background, how they got to where they are. Because the goal for me is like, I'm at this point where like people have given me the baton, so now it's time for me to give baton down, right, and try
Yeah.
to help out the future generation kind of
Hmm.
come to where people are at. So yeah,
Yeah.
so yes, I have. Unfortunately, I feel
Nice.
like many people have had that.
It is a dream. Like it's an amazing dream to have. So it's amazing that you're even thinking of that. Like where in the past you have reached out to people for help and you've got that help, which is amazing. And now you're thinking of like um helping others, right? So I'm gonna ask that you help me out here. As a high school computer science teacher, right? What could I do more? Like, what would you say to meet the demands of today, right? Because I personally, like, if you look at me, like, in a whole, like, transparent as possible, I personally don't have, like, deep technical background. I just did my studies. I always thought I was going to be a math teacher, right? No cap. I had no idea I would ever teach computer science.
Oh really?
Yeah. So yeah, it was not my calling. It just kind of happened. No one can teach it. And, I said yes to a job because I needed a job, right? Because I need to pay my bills and tuition, debt, and all that. So, in your professional experience, we see you're a professional now. Like, what would you say? Like, what could high schools do better? Like, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fundamentals are very, very important, and I think that your grade 12 and grade 11 like Python classes, those really prepared me very well. Like my first, and I think I messaged you like saying this after my freshman year. If not, I'm sorry, but my first year, I think we did TypeScript, and like all your learnings were very, very useful. And in fact, a lot of the interviews I had interviews in freshman year, and a lot of the algorithm related questions and all that, like bubble sort, all these random things, like your classes prepared me for that. Even a bit of that on my second year to some degree. So I think all those fundamental classes and those teachings, I think those are great. Those experiences I feel are not the same in other schools.
Hmm.
And vary on professors. So I feel like
Right.
what you're teaching is really awesome. I think, I kind of, going above that, some of the recommendations I would have is I know like some students, they have a lot of coursework. So maybe not like mandating certain things, but
Hmm.
maybe I would encourage like if you can you kind of talk to people in different careers, like someone like who's in iOS development, someone who's in this and that, and ask them the resources that they use to learn,
Yeah.
and then you can kind of compile some sort of sheet or give people these sort of resources. Say, hey, like these are some things that you guys can do outside of class. I won't necessarily test it on you guys, but
Hmm.
these are what people did to get to where they are. And I would encourage you guys to learn from it, and I can connect you to those people if you have further questions.
That's awesome. Cool, cool. Yeah.
And I guess, what advice would you give me or someone that's, older than me and, just in general life advice? I remember before you graduated, you gave the whole class like
Yeah,
advice.
yeah, yeah.
So anything about
Yeah, so I would say like I'm about 9 years ahead of you, right? Take care of your health. I think that's one thing, right? You can make 500K a year, but if you're not healthy enough to use that, it's a waste of it's just numbers in your bank account, right? Like make sure to enjoy life, right? Have no regrets. Say yes to things that you want to, right? Like don't say yes to things like doing meth or something. That will ruin your life. But with reasonable context, you should say yes to things, agree to things, try out, make memories. And some nights you won't even remember, but that's okay. You want to enjoy life and you want to have that, right? And life is more fun when it has up and downs. It's not always going to be up. It's not always going to be down. Um, and when you have those down moments, you will really start to cherish all the good moments you had. So yeah, and if you're not allergic to like animals, get a pet. It's an amazing experience. I finally have a dog, and it's life changing. It's so like heartwarming to come home to a dog, right? Yeah.
I have a cat now, man.
Oh, that's awesome, right? Like cats are great too. I love cats.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. Do
Hmm.
you have a corgi?
No, no, my.
What?
I
What's wrong?
know, I know. I have a little Westie. What's it called? Like they're the same shape basically, but just different breed. My wife loves Westie, and when you're in a relationship, sometimes your wife trumps all like the decisions. So yeah.